Things are bad and they're getting worse. I'm not trying to be a bummer. That's just the reality of the situation. And these are 7 novels to understand what's coming. Why read novels instead of, say, reading a nonfiction book? When you read a novel and it's truly immersive, you enter into a parallel world. You're living a virtual reality existence in that world, especially if you're really, really into the novel. And so when that parallel reality eventually matches up with your actual lived reality, it's like you've already been there. And so you're not taken off guard. Think of these books as like a dry run for the apocalypse. It's not really the apocalypse. What's happening is capitalism is collapsing. People like to dance around, especially YouTubers. They'll dance around and they'll talk about everything except capitalism when talking about our current situation. We have to be realistic about this situation. Capitalism is evil. The tiny minority of people at the top that are benefiting from the way that things are right now don't want the game to change because they are winning the game. Power is entrenched, and nothing short of disaster and total collapse will change anything. You're never going to vote in a good guy president. I'm sorry. That neoliberal dream is dead. Capitalism is a death cult, and it is destroying the planet and countless human lives. We've all been generationally brainwashed to not even understand what it is that's killing us. And so conservatives blame immigrants, whatever. I don't know if I need to talk about that. Let's just call it what it is. The United States is entirely corrupt, irredeemably corrupt. That's just the reality of the situation. And you can tell yourself another story until reality comes around and bites you in the ass. So these novels that I'm recommending are novels for you to get a feel for what's coming, or depending on your level of privilege, what's already here or what's been here for years. Because capitalism is a death cult and people are sacrificed on the altar every day. Look at the health insurance situation. Look at the response to COVID. Look at the countless wars over oil and money all over the world. And you may be like, but what about communism? It's bad. Like millions of people starve. I'm not talking about communism. I'm talking about capitalism. We are insignificant tadpoles, and capitalism is the toxic cesspool that we were born in. And we live out our entire lives without even realizing that we are inside a toxic, sludgy cesspool. But anyway, let me recommend a few books. First up, we have one of my all-time favorite books, Germinal by Emile Zola. These books smell good. They got that like vanilla bookstore smell, old paper vanilla bookstore smell. One of my favorite books. It was written in 1885. It's about a French guy that goes to this town in France and becomes a coal miner. He organizes a strike under these like unimaginably awful conditions. It's about labor, organized labor. It's about treating humans as cogs in a machine, grinding them down to nothing. It's about what happens when people are finally pushed to the edge. The famous quote from the book is, "We want bread," or something like that. Give us bread or something. Because they're starving these people. Horrible conditions. I mean, the book's about the inhumane evil of capitalism and the inevitable uprisings that come out of treating humans like replaceable cogs in a machine. And if you've ever had a horrible job where you were treated like a replaceable cog in a machine, which is most people, I mean, it's kind of the nature of capitalism. You're replaceable. And if you ask for more money, we'll get somebody else that will work for less, and you're out on the street. And soon, realistically, AI is going to replace almost everyone's job. So be on the lookout for civil unrest, for strikes, striking workers, angry mobs of people tired of being exploited. This book is hyper relevant today. Check it out, Germinal. Next up, we have, and these are in no particular order. If they were, this would probably be number 1. And if you haven't read this book, you should read this book. You need to read this book. Maybe one of the most important books you need to read. And that is Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. I can't find my copy of it. It's actually my wife's copy, and I don't know where she put it. There's a reason why so many people talk about this book. Prophetic doesn't even begin to describe it. It's set in 2020s California. I don't remember if it gives a specific date. The world is shockingly familiar. This young woman, she lives in a walled-off community. because every community at this point in the collapse of the United States is a walled community. I haven't read it in a while, to be honest. But I remember there's roving bands of people on drugs, and the drug makes people flip out and often start fires and kind of become pyromaniacs. It's a beautiful book about a very strong human being's response to the collapse of capitalism. I really don't want to tell you too much about it because you really should just read the book. It's so good. It should be required reading as a primer for what we are headed into, or are already in, depending on your level of privilege and where you live in the United States. Next up in my list of light, fun beach reads, we have Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which I mentioned in my last video. Now, granted, this is a worst case scenario. The Road is what happens after a complete collapse. Not just a collapse of capitalism, but like a complete ecological collapse. It's never stated fully what happened, like if there was a meteor strike or I think it was a meteor, like an asteroid hit the Earth or something, and threw the entire planet into kind of a nuclear winter. It's incredibly dark, also incredibly accessible, very simple, just a man and his son struggling to survive in a post-apocalyptic hellscape. But what I think is important about it is it's about the will to survive and carry forward in the face of unimaginable horrors. I mean, there are bands of people roving around, like, killing and eating people in this book. It's beyond dark. It's so dark it's kind of funny. People rarely mention this, and no spoilers, but it kind of has a happy ending of sorts. It has a hopeful ending, I think. Next up, we have Kim Stanley Robinson's The Ministry of the Future. It's a very beat up, dirty copy. Now, as opposed to The Road, Ministry of the Future is not like great literature. It's not a beautiful book. You can read Cormac McCarthy's On the Road, and it's kind of a beautiful, poetic book. The Ministry of the Future is not that. It's also incredibly long, maybe too long, to be honest. The book kind of spans decades, though. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but the book's about global warming. It's hitting different parts of the globe harder than other parts, of course. And there's a big heat wave. It kills a ton of people in India, which then sparks a eco-terrorist cell that begins taking on the oil companies in a way that politics and voting and all that stuff obviously don't. What's funny is I remember it was like one of like Obama's picks for like best of the year that year, which is funny because how I remember this book is the climate was collapsing. The government was barely doing anything about it, especially because it was the people that were dying were like brown people in other countries. So the world powers weren't really doing anything about it until this terrorist cell starts taking out the oil executives' airplanes with drones and starts killing oil executives and stuff. So it's kind of funny that this was like Obama's pick. Like maybe he didn't read the book, or maybe he focused on the other stuff. There's other dopey stuff about like companies buying carbon offset credits and weird like stuff like that. But in the book, nothing really changes until some pretty hardcore stuff happens. The book totally has a happy ending. It's kind of like it's actually a very optimistic view on what could happen. You should give it a shot. It's really long, and it came out a few years ago. It's still just as relevant, if not more so. Next, we have one of my favorites, Don DeLillo, Libra. As you can see on the cover, it's about Lee Harvey Oswald. But it's really not about Lee Harvey Oswald. It's about the multi-layered, surreal tapestry of a hopelessly corrupt system. It's a beautiful, poetic book about conspiracy theories. I feel like I've been using a lot of scare quotes. This book is important because things are surreal and they're getting more surreal. I think that's just an outcome of the system collapsing around us, is that things are going to become more and more surreal. I mean, think about it. All of a sudden, it's like UFOs, drones in the sky, false flag stuff, obviously faked assassination attempts, MK Ultra, dark sex scandals, world leaders, weaponized viruses. This book is about navigating and piecing together a reality in a hurricane of disinformation and misinformation and government psyops and lies upon lies upon lies to protect the wealthy and powerful. This book has it all. This book is like, for me, the key book. I mean, there are other books like Gravity's Rainbow, but I feel like this is the key book and one of my favorite books. Next up is a book I don't actually own anymore because I didn't like it that much. But I still think it's important and worth reading, and that is The Mandibles, is Lionel Shriver's The Mandibles. I mean, the book was okay. The book was good. It's another instance, just like Ministry of the Future. It wasn't great literature, and it was way too long, but it was so relevant, and I feel like it's even more relevant now, that it's still worth reading. It takes place in like the late 2020s, and capitalism just collapses. And it follows this family in New York. I mean, here's what annoyed me about the book, is everyone's just so quirky. Like, so quirky. Imagine you took, like, Wes Anderson, The Royal Tenenbaums, but it's about the collapse of capitalism. It was one of those books you read it and you're like, nobody talks this way. But you can tell that the writer did insane research to write this book. And so the facts of the book are good and solid. You're just following kind of annoying people. So basically it's just like them surviving. First in New York City, and then fleeing to... I don't want to give spoilers for the book. It has a happy ending. It's not as dark as some of these other books, but it's definitely worth reading. Just like Ministry of the Future, which also feels like it was incredibly well-researched, this feels like it was very well-researched. Next, we have a probably unexpected pick, Greene, The End of the Affair. Really one of the most beautiful books I've ever read. And one of my favorite books. It's set in World War II London during the Blitz. Everything's ruined and blown up. The protagonist is a writer. He's super annoying. He's like this really, almost like an incel dude. And he starts having an affair with this woman during the whole World War II London being bombed into rubble. But why I picked it is the main character is this very like hard-nosed, scientific materialist, kind of a hyper neoliberal guy coming in contact with the unexplainable in the midst of all this collapse and chaos. I can't tell you more than that without spoiling it if you haven't read it. But I feel like in this era of collapse, we're going to come into contact more and more with the inexplicable, things that just don't make sense, even things that would maybe seem supernatural. The End of the Affair was about making meaning in absolute ruin. Also tragedy, the death of someone you love, and the world's collapsing around you. But also about finding a connection to something larger than yourself and your understanding in a world that's collapsing. It's one of the most beautiful books I've ever read. It's definitely one of my top 10 favorite books. It's really just like a meaning of life book, but finding meaning within chaos and tragedy. And unfortunately, not to be a bummer, I think we are all on the precipice of having to find meaning in chaos and tragedy, as if you're not there already. Last and certainly least, we have my book, the book I wrote 5-ish years ago. The Fact of the Moon is Stranger Than Most Dreams. It's set 15-ish years in the future. It follows 3 stoner artist types in San Francisco, navigating a world of economic collapse and also high strangeness and conspiracy. I'll probably do an incredibly self-indulgent long-form video talking about my novel at some point. I still stand by it. I still think it's a good novel. I'm almost done with my next novel, and so inevitably I'm more interested in the novel I'm currently finishing, but I still stand by it. I did a ton of research for this novel. I was trying to incorporate just an ungodly amount of research into a novel, into a story. And a lot of the stuff that I talk about in that novel has come to pass 5 years later. So pick it up, buy a copy. I promise it's not garbage. It's good. It's kind of in the same vein as this book, navigating conspiracy and high strangeness as everything collapses around you. So again, here are all the books, except for Parable of the Sower, which is probably the most important one that you should actually read right away. The ideas in these books that are hyper-relevant today are ideas like social murder, like in the book Germinal, where these miners' bodies are being crushed into dust by capitalism, and the solidarity that is found under the boot of capitalism. Parable of the Sower and The Road are about survival and finding meaning. In Parable of the Sower, she creates a religion. In The Road, it's the man's drive to keep his son alive. Finding a larger meaning outside of yourself. I'd also argue The End of the Affair also is about finding a larger meaning outside of yourself. With Don DeLillo's Libra, and also with my book, it's about the lies and conspiracies inherent to a entirely corrupt system that we live in. Lies upon lies upon lies, in the service of protecting the rich and powerful that ultimately control everything. It also connects to the French philosopher Baudrillard and the concept of hyperreality, which I open my novel with a quote from Baudrillard. We live in a world where there's more and more information and less meaning. We've created a hyper-capitalist simulation where the simulation replaces reality. And with Don DeLillo's Libra, it's about how everyone knows the official JFK story is false, but ultimately the truth is unknowable when it's hidden under a mountain of misinformation. And then with The Road, with the Mandibles, I feel like that's kind of about how look how fast our values and our way of life evaporate when everything collapses, and how we suddenly have to do what we have to do to survive. But then with books like The Parable of the Sower and The Ministry of the Future, it's also about the human impulse to rebuild and move on from the ashes of something ruined and evil. These books are about getting psychologically prepared for what's to come. Not in a bummer way, but just in a realistic way.